Hello everyone, Neil Patel here. Thank you for downloading the latest episode of the Indian Startup Show. Today I speak to Ryan and Rohith. They are the co-founders of an exciting new startup called Crypto University. It's a global university to help people understand the power of blockchain technologies and its application across different industries. Exciting stuff. So we talk about a wide range of subjects, including how they got started, to creating a successful Indiegogo campaign, how you separate the hype and reality of cryptocurrency and blockchain, Bitcoin and smart contracts. They also give smart advice on investing, thoughts on the Indian startup scene and what they've learned on their startup journey, and finally some cricket chat as well. So please enjoy the show. Thank you. Hi guys, welcome to the Indian Startup Show.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
Excellent. If you could tell the listeners what you're building, please.
So Rohith and I are working on the Crypto University. So the Crypto University is a global online school for blockchain and its applications. So put very simply, the aim is to teach people starting right from the very basics of what a blockchain is and getting up to some pretty advanced applications in a number of industries.
Excellent. Where did the idea come from? What was the light bulb moment?
So basically 2017 was a crazy year for like the crypto market as a whole, where there were a lot of tokens and coins and all that were really appreciating in value. Both me and Ryan used to keep discussing about investing in this market and stuff like that. But as we started learning more and more about this, we were just like, hey, the applications behind this and the underlying technology is really where things are at, and basically neither me nor Ryan, we want to be considered as fortune tellers, or we stay far away from the speculative investing side of things in terms of this is the coin you need to buy or anything like that in our courses. What we're sort of really fascinated by, and we think that more people should really learn and understand about, is the underlying technology, which is blockchain and its applications.
Excellent. How is it going so far then? How many people are signed up?
Yeah, so we actually started off selling our sort of first course, which is called the Crypto Masterclass, back in Jan. And we did it through an Indiegogo campaign, which did really well. We got about 50 odd paying students through that campaign. Pretty much sold everything out in terms of what we planned to sell. So since then we've added about 20 odd students, paying students that is, and we have about 700 or
so students on there
on the free courses.
Basically. The other big thing is over the last few months we've also sort of gotten a lot of clarity on how to sort of move this forward, because these things may not look like big numbers or anything like that, but we have a lot of interesting things sort of planned out. So right now, the teachers that we have on a platform are basically me and Ryan. Me coming from so I'm a Carnegie Mellon grad, worked in the Valley and in New York for a while, and I come in from a very sort of technology side of things and building side of things, whereas Ryan, he comes in from an applications point of view, and that's what really excites him. What we have sort of planned out right now is really getting a lot more experts onto the platform, to actually teach different aspects of it. So specific aspects of Ethereum and building applications on Ethereum, and then specific applications for other blockchains out there. So really going after experts to teach a lot of this curriculum for the Crypto University.
You said that you sold out the course. Is that what you expected?
It was way more than we expected. Yeah. Basically, so I've worked in startups before and stuff like that, and tried to build my own company before. I spent an entire year sort of trying to build this perfect product before I went ahead and tried to sell it, and then sort of got a lot of pushback saying that there's no market for it. So this time around, I was pretty adamant, and Ryan was all on board with this, of just sort of pre-selling things and really sort of setting that out there, making sure and testing out this sort of demand. So yeah, we definitely had 600% of like our Indiegogo.
Yeah, we overfunded by 600%. So that was definitely the good kind of surprise.
Yeah. And the thing is that our courses also, we pride ourselves on keeping quality content. It's not like a $10 course or something like that. We've had students pay up to $199 for a course, and even then said that, hey, I would have paid even more for it, so.
Who are you actually targeting then? Who are the actual customers?
So currently, at least of our paying student set, we've had a whole variety of people. So right from sort of university students, who are just sort of 19, 20 years old, all the way to some really experienced professionals who, have worked in their respective industries for a couple of decades. So in terms of the kind of people who are interested in learning about this, it's a really broad spectrum. But at least currently, through the Crypto Masterclass and some of the other courses that we are going to put out in the next week or two, we're really targeting people who are very interested in getting their first sort of taster of what blockchain is. What is this thing that everyone's talking about? Why are cryptocurrencies gaining and falling in value so rapidly? So it's right now we're catered towards people who probably don't know much at all, but want to get up to a stage where they are not only confident talking about it, but can actually initiate projects in their industries, in their companies. And as Rohith mentioned, we're soon going to put out a course on Ethereum development. So that's going to focus on the development side of it.
Sounds exciting. So who actually owns blockchain then? Does anyone actually own blockchain?
So that's actually a very interesting question. So the way to sort of think about it is like, firstly, there are many different blockchains out there. There are like both public blockchains as well as private blockchains. And the blockchain is essentially, you can almost think of it as like one giant database, and anyone who wants to sort of, let's take the Bitcoin blockchain, for example. Anyone who wants to participate in the Bitcoin blockchain as like a miner or like they need to have a copy of that blockchain. So nobody actually owns the Bitcoin blockchain.
There are private blockchains which are owned either by one company or by a consortium of companies. So I know a number of banks are working on building something where they're all going to be co-owners. But the important thing to understand is that, whether a blockchain is private or is totally decentralized and is open to anyone, very much boils down to, firstly, the ideology of the people behind it. So obviously in the case of banks, a lot of what they are trying is just to bring in efficiency into some of their operations. They are not at all interested in decentralizing money because that means that they will hold less power over the financial system. Whereas, some of the more sort of decentralized blockchains have been set up with a very different ideology. People are not wanting to control anything. And therefore, the way that they are approaching things and the way that they are trying to build things is trying to open up this technology to the world and let anyone who wants to participate make use of it. So that's going to be a continuing theme in the next 5 to 10 years as far as blockchain is concerned, because you even see governments wanting to build their own cryptocurrencies, and so anyone wanting to understand the space also has to take a step back and say, okay, why is this particular organization or country or group of companies wanting to build this? There is the real motive, and then there is an ulterior motive with anything. And so it's important to really dig deep and figure out what those motives are.
You mentioned Bitcoin. Is it still worth investing in Bitcoin? What's the word on the street now?
Again, I like to stay away from offering like speculative investing advice because that really is what it is.
But were you surprised
Yes,
that it went through the roof last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a crazy time. I mean, and it all happened. So I was doing some analysis yesterday so I just downloaded a bunch of data and was doing some analysis, and all of that happened, in the space of about 10 or 11 days. And yeah, I mean, stuff like that does happen in smaller markets, and cryptocurrency definitely is a small market, a few $100 billion. But as the market matures with better regulation and as it grows in size, those sort of moves are going to become less likely and less frequent. But coming back to your point of, is it still worth investing in? So obviously I spend quite a lot of time thinking about questions like these. And it's, one big thing that I see coming in, especially with the SEC in the US coming out with certain rules as to whether a coin or a token should be a registered security or not. I think what we'll find is that a lot of these tokens that have come out in initial coin offerings will, over the next 2 to 3 years, be deemed illegal.
Oh, okay.
So you are going to see a lot of value eroded from these markets. And therefore, it is the coins that are truly decentralized, like Bitcoin, Litecoin, and maybe just a handful of others. And this is just my sort of way of looking at the world. Those are the coins that are going to end up holding value. Because if a lot of these coins that were issued in ICOs are deemed illegal, well, they're just going to fall away. So that's just sort of one way to answer that question.
Yeah. But again, none of this is investment advice. Anyone putting money into this should, do it at their own sort of discretion.
Well,
yeah, totally. I mean, and that's one thing we stay away from.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of people ask us, "Hey, I heard of this coin. What do you think?" And it's almost impossible to say. The most important thing is look at the team. What is the track record of the team? What are they trying to build? Does it actually make sense on a blockchain? Do you gain any value out of building it on a blockchain? And then accordingly, put your money in. But there's no sort of way of saying where this is all headed. So got to be careful.
So for the average guy on the street then, why should they care about blockchain then?
So I think the first application of blockchain is clearly currency, right? And that's sort of what's taken the world by storm and captured everyone's imagination. And so if you get on a Twitter or LinkedIn or any of these platforms, you'll see that there are all sorts of people who are so excited about this, right? And the reasons are pretty clear. I mean, if I was to sitting in Bangalore, if I was to transfer money to you in Manchester, in the UK, it's going to take a minimum of 2 days, possibly longer, depending on the bank I am banking with and the bank you are banking with, and whether they have a relationship and all of that. Using cryptocurrency, it can happen in 5 seconds. So that is clearly a very big change as to what the financial world is used to, as to what people are used to when they use financial products. So that is obviously one big reason for people. But having said that, there are a lot of other applications that are being built across a number of industries that can fundamentally change the way we transact with each other. In a world where Facebook and Cambridge Analytica are able to pretty much sift through anything that we put online, a lot of these technologies which offer really strong privacy do have a place in the world, and I'm not saying that only people who are hell-bent on doing illegal things are going to use them. No, this is for everyone. I mean, if you want to preserve your privacy as you transact and communicate on the internet, these technologies can help you do that in a very secure way. So, we're just sort of starting off in terms of some of the capabilities of this technology, but I'm pretty sure in the next 5 years that, a lot of people, the guy on the street will be using this not only for money, but for other things as well.
Excellent. Okay. Actually, let's go back to investments then. Sounds quite interesting. What are people? What's worth investing then? Forget about cryptocurrency. I mean, you've got an investment background. What trends are you seeing at the moment? Just for our listeners, they may have some money they want to invest in.
Yeah. So I personally, just because I don't have a lot of time to spend on my own investments, I've basically been putting my money into ETFs and into mutual funds. And obviously, being based in India, most of my investments are in Indian ETFs and Indian mutual funds. So that sort of takes a lot of the worry away, takes a lot of the thinking away. Obviously, if being an emerging market, Indian equities have had a really strong run in the last couple of years. So some of the funds that I'm invested in have returned, upwards of 25% a year, which is really good for shares. So that's obviously one aspect of it. There are other emerging markets like Vietnam, Malaysia, Turkey that are also doing well. But then again, it depends on how accessible those are. Not everyone is able to access global investing, at least as far as stocks are concerned. And there again, that's something that I'm very bullish on in terms of blockchain helping remove some of those barriers. So as we progress as far as tokenization of assets is concerned, anyone anywhere in the world is going to be able to invest in assets irrespective of where those assets are originating from, and so that's something I'm excited about. So but in terms of my own portfolio, I don't have like individual stocks. I just don't have the time to do research on that. And also, I'm a firm believer in the power of information to impact investment returns. And as a retail investor sitting in India, I just don't have access to that information. So in the absence of that information, the next best thing I can do is to just put it into funds and ETFs and not worry about, about the things that probably the fund managers and the hedge fund guys think about.
Yeah, might have to start investing in North Korea soon, I think.
Let's see.
What about gold? Obviously, gold's been around for years, and people always invest in that. That seems a safe bet. Is that still the same? You think?
That is one way of actually looking at it. There are still a lot of people that do end up investing in gold. And in fact, Bitcoin in a lot of ways can be considered like digital gold, because it's, the more I think about it, the less it feels like a currency and more it feels like a fixed commodity like gold. Go for it if you think that, it's something that people that will appreciate in value over time.
Well, in India, there are a lot of people who buy gold. Yeah. So physical gold, this is, not investing in gold ETFs or anything. So that sort of investment is more like, the thought process behind that is it's going to be a backstop in case anything bad happens in life. You lose a lot of money, or family feuds, you lose assets, whatever it might be. That gold that you own, whether it's in the form of earrings or necklaces or gold bars or whatever it is going to have a value for sure. The rupee might not have a value in 10 years. Nobody knows, depending on governance and economy and all that. But gold, as the world's most precious metal, is going to have a value. So, at least demand in India is not going down. I don't see it going down time in the future. So that's always a decent investment.
Always jewelry.
Yeah. One thing I will say though is another thing that'll always have value is just sort of how you educate yourself. So just sort of like stay up to date, read a lot, really understand what exactly is happening in the world, how your industry is sort of changing. That's just across the board. The most successful people I know are people that just sort of like just hungry for information, just hungry to just sort of keep learning and upskilling themselves. So
I suppose you need to be a risk taker as well, I suppose. Is that right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about you two guys. How did you guys meet then?
So me and Ryan actually met all the way back in, well, I don't know if Ryan knew me back then, but we both went to the same school back in Dubai.
Yeah.
So Ryan was, I guess, 3 years senior to me. So everyone knew of Ryan because he was like the captain of the school cricket team, and he was playing for the UAE national team and all of that. So everyone knew of Ryan. And when I I was working in New York before I moved back to Bangalore. And when I moved back, I was like, oh, who do I know from Mod 9 Bangalore? And Ryan happened to be there. So it was just over Facebook being like, hey, do you want to meet up? I'm new to the city. And yeah, that's how I guess I met Ryan again in Bangalore. So
Actually, you mentioned cricket then.
Yep.
Who's going to win the series between India and England then?
Oh, India and England. That's so. The thing is,
actually, England got beat by Scotland, so
Yeah, I think I'll be very surprised if England wins. But you never know. We historically haven't done too well in England, simply because it's so different to what the Indian players are used to. So yeah, as long as Kohli does well, we stand a very good chance. If he doesn't do well, and he hasn't done well in England so far, then it's pretty open, I would say. So, but it's exciting. I'm more excited about the World Cup next year.
Yeah. What happened in the Champions Trophy then? Because obviously India were favourites against Pakistan but got beat. What happened there then?
That was last year, wasn't it? Yeah. That was well. I mean, I remember watching that game, and India basically just got outplayed. There's no other way to describe it. There's no point trying to make excuses because the Pakistani bowlers were just too good, pretty much unplayable. And I mean, they deserve to win. There's no two ways about that.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, sorry. I was saying, and it's been a while since Pakistan had won anything. They anyway get to play such less international cricket, so I was happy for them actually. It's good for the game.
Okay, cool. Will you actually teach mining as well?
Well, sure. I mean, if you find someone who has a decent amount of experience with mining for different cryptocurrencies, yeah, I don't see why not.
We have thought about that because there is potentially a lot of demand, but again, one of the things about mining is that it's quite heavily influenced by regulation. So it's only people with a lot of, at least as far as Bitcoin is concerned, it's only people with a lot of money that are going into mining.
Yeah.
So it's not sort of, like you're sitting at home and you've got a free laptop that's not doing anything and you set it up. Those days are gone,
especially for Bitcoin. There are some newer coins and all of that where it is a lot easier to mine for them, but even then it's just sort of okay, so I'll give you an example. Essentially, to actually mine for a coin, you need to almost, in the simplest sense, solve a math puzzle.
Yeah.
All right. And there are different sort of algorithms that you can actually end up doing to actually end up figuring out the solution faster than everyone else, right? Now the way the system is sort of evolving is people are sort of building these application-specific integrated circuits, just sort of hard coding what exactly needs to be done onto a chip, and then sort of running their servers on that chip, or on thousands of those chips, So it's just one of those things where I won't be able to do it on my own MacBook Pro, or anything like that. There are some coins where you probably could, but is it really valuable for you to do that? The way me and Ryan sort of think about it is the sort of tokens and coins that will have value are the ones that actually have utility and that people will actually end up using, So.
Excellent. What about smart contracts? Is that something you'll talk about in the courses? Yeah. Just want to explain to our listeners who may not know what smart contracts are, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. So to sort of understand what smart contracts are, it's important to understand how exactly web applications and current sort of systems sort of work. So let's take an app like, let's say, Facebook, right? When you're sort of like posting a picture onto Facebook, something like that, what ends up happening? You use your phone to actually take a picture and you post it. What ends up happening is that photo essentially gets stored on the Facebook infrastructure somewhere, and they probably have their own system to sort of make sure that, this information is protected and so on and so forth, right? So there's this sort of centralized server over there, which is running a whole bunch of different things, which your Facebook app on your phone can actually talk to. Now, the way you think about like smart contracts, right? Smart contracts are always built on top of a specific kind of blockchain, So let's take Ethereum, for example. Ethereum is basically this sort of, let's say, the best way to describe it is this constantly running application, A smart contract is almost like a specific kind of function on that particular application. And you can sort of think of it almost like programmable money and programmable tasks. Let's say if Ryan asked me for money, send him $50, like those are, in a very simplistic sense, something that, you could actually program into a smart contract. And like, the obvious things that might come into your head are like, oh yeah, like let's pay my rent on the first of the month and let's put that on a smart contract. And those are things that could, that again is solved by centralized systems, but this idea of smart contracts have a lot of applications in fields like supply chain and so on and so forth, and making that entire space a lot more transparent.
Excellent. Yes, essentially they're just pieces of software that sort of replace human input. And when you try and replace human input by code, you basically bring down the chances of error and of fraud. But then, with code, obviously, there are other security issues that come into it, which is why we've not yet seen any real big application of smart contracts. Because there is that issue of theft and security as well. So,
how does it work between you two guys then? Does one do the sales, one does the tech side of things, or how does it all work?
Yeah. So right now, I guess in a lot of ways, I do a lot of the development side of things and the design side of things and stuff like that. Both of us create the content around for the crypto university and stuff like that. But still early days. So where we both sort of have our opinions and ideas on how to actually sort of move things forward. So
yeah, I mean at this point it's more about just doing whatever's needed, to keep moving forward, as opposed to splitting things up. And Rohith definitely is sort of he's the tech guy, so he's driving the platform and what we're doing on it in terms of how we're putting our content out there and what's going to be easiest for our users to to sort of learn from and things like that. So
is it still fun?
Yeah, of course. Like we wouldn't be doing it otherwise. And like I said, what I love about this is just the fact that we're just learning new things about the space itself every single day. I think me and Ryan probably, and this is not me trying to brag or anything, but we genuinely believe that we know a lot more about what's happening in this space and the kind of applications that are coming out and the kinds of projects that people are working on than most people out there, and it's fascinating to see, a lot of these projects will fail, but some of them will succeed, and it's just sort of being in the early stages of a new seminal piece of technology that's coming out, and just sort of having this sort of close look at it, it's great for us.
So it's that the hype is real then.
So no. So let's put it this way: the hype over the coins and tokens and stuff like that, I'm skeptical. But I'm usually a skeptic with most things. The technology, however, I'm long-term bullish on it. Yeah, there are like flaws, short-term challenges that it faces, but I'm long-term bullish on it.
Excellent. Obviously, we have a lot of listeners who are thinking of doing their own startups. What advice would you give them?
I think both me and Ryan will have a lot to talk about, especially Ryan, since he's doing like two very different companies pretty much. For me, the way I sort of the piece of advice I give them is start it off as a project, rather than as a startup or a company or something like that, being like, hey, this is one of the things that we want to build, which would be cool. Yeah. Ship as quickly as possible and get to at least one paying customer who isn't your friend or your family or anything like that, because the way you sort of look at things, it just sort of changes completely. And be willing to sort of iterate, it's whatever you put out in the beginning, it's not going to be perfect. Be okay with that, but like set apart time to actually iterate on it and make things better after collecting like paying customer feedback. That's sort of what I would advise.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add to what Rohith said was, so this is the first time I'm working with someone who has a completely different background to me. So very often, especially when you're doing your first company, the temptation is to go with, people who are very similar to you. They went to the same college or they worked at the same company as you. They might even have like the same sort of skill set. And it's very easy to say, oh yeah, like I know him well and, let's do it. But what I've sort of learned from working with Rohith is, there's a lot of value to be gained in working with someone who's got a very different background to you. So like, I'm learning a lot from him in terms of, just how to go about sort of building an internet company, because he has that experience. He's done that for the last 7-8 years, whatever it is. So that's something, I see a lot of my friends, they don't really think of it like that. They're always going around looking for co-founders who are very similar to them in very many respects. So that's another thing which is, which I've learned this time basically, that the more different you are, the more ideas you get, and
and be okay with disagreeing with your co-founder, because me and Ryan sometimes have very different opinions on what needs to happen. But what I always tell them is like, hey, and both of us, we come in from the best interests of the crypto university. It's not about our ego or anything like that. It's about like what's going to be best for our students and instructors, and that sort of line we take, and that's how we make decisions on what needs to happen.
What's your view on the startup scene in India now? Because obviously, Ryan, I spoke to you 2 years ago. It was booming. What is it now? Is it still booming now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the whole Walmart Flipkart deal has given a lot of sort of impetus to the system, because a lot of people, and myself included, it started sort of thinking that where is all this headed? I mean, all of these companies are just raising ridiculous amounts of money, but then at some point investors want to be paid back, and then obviously like some investors in Flipkart now have made exits of 157x. So, so now a lot of people are saying, okay, there is a lot of possibility to sell to international companies and obviously to grow organically, to build very large companies. So there are other companies now which are pretty close to an exit of some sort, like Ola and Paytm, a number of those. So there's a lot going on. A lot of people willing to try things, to grow large businesses starting from pretty much nothing. So yeah, it's really interesting. You always bump into people doing really interesting, and not only in the tech space. I meet people in in a lot of your traditional physical businesses as well, but they're doing really interesting things, whether it's restaurants or consumer goods or education, healthcare, whatever it might be. Fitness is a big trend now. A lot of money being pumped into the whole fitness industry here. So yeah, there's an awful lot happening. It's exciting, and it's good to be part of.
Yeah. Well, one thing I would add there is this is one of the trends that I see changing a little bit is if you look at one of the big things that was lacking in the Indian ecosystem for a long time was just sort of good mentorship, like especially in the internet startup side of things, these are entrepreneurs, first time entrepreneurs. The people they look to for advice and stuff like that didn't exist, in this country, like someone capable in that. There are a few exceptions, but there wasn't a good slew of mentors out there to be like, hey, I made this mistake, don't do that again, kind of things, which is why a lot of companies actually ended up failing and going through the motions, but you also end up learning a lot through your sort of failures in terms of what ended up happening. So I'm seeing a lot of second time founders, who are not making those same kinds of mistakes they made earlier in terms of just raising a ridiculous amount of money, having huge marketing plans without really having an underlying product under it, and those same people are sort of giving advice to the next breed of first time entrepreneurs, to be like, hey, don't do this. I made this mistake. Don't make the same mistake I did. It was glamorous for a while, but really it's not worth it. So that's another sort of change I'm getting. So just the market itself becoming a lot more mature now.
Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give to first time founders then?
No, so like I said, right, my advice is try and get to revenue first, forget about how polished your product is. And I'm a product guy, I try to get things as pixel perfect as possible and stuff like that, but really get to a paying customer for whatever you're doing as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And the paying part is very important here because people will say they'll end up using your product, but them actually paying to use your product, whatever it is a completely different story, so, and, trust and listen to your customer feedback, but don't let that drive your company, in terms of collect feedback from a lot of people and make an informed decision. So.
Do you think anyone can be an entrepreneur then?
I think, to be very honest, entrepreneurship in a lot of ways is most things in life, if you keep at it, you will become more and more successful and better at it, your first company might not work out, your second company might not, your third might not, but you need to make sure that you learn stuff from every single opportunity that you have to actually build something. And then eventually, you'll end up hitting on something big, and something interesting because you're just going to have this unfair advantage over everyone else out there. And, I actually really believe in that. If you look at Travis Kalanick, he had his first company was he was sued for literally billions of dollars, and it was based on the stories I read and stuff like that, it was just a very traumatic experience for him. But he didn't quit being an entrepreneur. He quit that company. So,
what would you say is the most surprising thing about your entrepreneurial journey then?
I guess for me, well, I'll be perfectly honest here. I didn't expect this sort of. I thought of a crypto university as a sort of project, of hey, this is one of those things we're going to do on the side. We're going to learn a bunch, all of those kinds of things, and then it's going to be one of those things that will help, me personally, because both me and Ryan were this is just a cool thing to work on. It's such an interesting project to work on. But based on the sort of feedback that we've been getting from our students and how we're sort of seeing the space evolving and stuff like that, I'm extremely sort of bullish on it. It's I don't want to call it an accidental company, but I definitely didn't think about it as a company when we started out. Me and Ryan were all right, hey, let's do this. We clearly know a lot about this. Let's see if we can actually, there are other people out there who'd be willing to learn about things that we know, and now it's just like, about improving that over and over again. But that was my biggest thing. But go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I think for me, just looking at it from the perspective of a journey, I think the one thing that has surprised me is, over time, over the last 4-5 months. So when we started this, and we went all out on our Facebook and our Twitter, and like, to our friends and family, hey, like, look at what we're doing and all of that. And a lot of them, were very skeptical. They're like, oh my God, like, this guy is like, he's trying to like go into crypto and stuff, and he's just lost his mind, These people now in June 2018 are, pinging me on WhatsApp and email every second day saying, hey man, I'm reading up about this. I don't understand it. Can you explain it to me? So like basically people are slowly starting to, as you mentioned, separate the hype from the real stuff. And there is value in the real stuff. So for me, what's been really interesting is just seeing people, move from a point of, you're crazy, I don't know why you're doing this, to, pinging me and asking me questions and are clearly interested in all this. That's been a pleasant surprise for me. And so hopefully I can convert a lot more people, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, into thinking that, yes, there are a lot of issues with the space, but there are a lot of good things as well. And, so that's,
Good stuff. Last few questions then. Do you think you'll have like an offline version of what you do at the moment? Or is it going to be 100% online?
Yeah, that is definitely something that we've been sort of talking a lot about, in terms of actually like running conferences, running offline sort of workshops, running, these sort of expert seminars offline, it's just a matter of time, to be honest. Right now we're just focused on the things that, we can actually like work and scale on. But like even right now we have like conducted sort of seminars at WeWork and stuff like that, explaining some of the interesting trends that are happening in the space.
Yeah, I mean, there is clearly a lot of interest. We have another workshop coming up next month. This is not something we're charging for. We've just been invited at another co-working space in Bangalore called Springboard. So, there are people who are wanting to come and at least sort of listen and get a feel for what crypto is, for what blockchain is. So yeah, that's definitely something we need to think about, just thinking through a model basically. But there is a lot of interest, that's for sure, at least in Bangalore.
Yeah, most people are interested in learning more about this. It's just like most stuff that they find online and stuff like that, it's just not very good. It's just, yeah.
True.
So yeah.
Excellent. Okay, last question then. For people who want more information on the Crypto University, what must they do?
Well, you can definitely check out our website. It's www.thecryptouniversity.io. You can just Google for us as well. Just Google The Crypto University and we'll show up. If you want to shoot us an email, you can shoot us an email at hello@thecryptouniversity.io and we will definitely be responding to you. So,
guys, thank you for coming on the show today. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Neil.
Yeah, we loved it.
Always great talking to you.
Excellent. Thanks for the guys for coming on the show today. Thank you for supporting the podcast. I'll be back next week. If you want to come on the show, send me an email, hello@neilpatel.co, or tweet @IndianStartupSH. Or you can go to facebook.com/IndianStartupShow. We'd love to connect. Thank you and goodbye.